Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Beyond the Real. I'm Chase, and with me, as always, co-piloting this crazy ship is Preston. Preston, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
It's good. I'm hanging in there, man. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. We haven't been on air. Well, not really on air, but we haven't been recording in quite some time. It's been some craziness going on in the world, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today, and probably do some catch-up on the news. There's been a lot of news stories that we've not hit due to the craziness that's going on in our world today, which we'll talk about, and I'm sure you know what we are talking about. So let's go ahead and roll in the intro, and we'll get right into this podcast.
Shall we punch it?
Punch it!
Punch it!
Punch it!
Punch it!
So this is episode 10, I believe, and from what I hear for new podcasters, that's kind of a big hump.
Is it?
Getting to episode 10 is tough, which I have agreed, because we have missed several weeks.
Yep.
Craziness of life. I, for one, have moved to a new house, so there was a lot of craziness there, and I packed up my podcasting stuff too early, because it was the cause for us missing a couple of weeks, and then as most of our listeners may know, here in America and all over the world, but it seems like it's been pretty condensed here in the United States, there has been the movement of Black Lives Matter, which has been citizens protesting about the injustice that that the black citizens have been facing in this country and other countries due to racial stereotyping within law enforcement and other government agencies. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. But yeah, let's go ahead and just catch up on our lives a little bit, if you'd like, Preston, and we'll inform the listeners on what's been going on. So like I said, I'm been moving, so got a new studio, if you will, here. A little bit bigger space. It can fit more of my Star Wars toys and junk.
Yeah, I don't have to sit as close to you.
And you don't have to sit.
Nice.
Yeah, we were like face to face in the old place. Yeah, I mean, over quarantine, we did do the social distant Zoom call, if you will, style. But it's nice that now that here in Utah, our quarantine laws have kind of relaxed a little bit. I think we're now in the yellow. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we're in the yellow here. So we are allowed to mix and mingle a little bit more. So we're now doing this is our first face-to-face podcast since quarantine, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the last time that we were podcasting together was March.
Wow.
Maybe?
Yeah, that's been some time.
Yeah.
A lot has happened in between then. Yeah, we this isn't our first face-to-face encounter. We've been playing D&D for the last 2 weeks together, which has been fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
Star Wars D&D, that is,
Yeah.
not actual D&D. So it's interesting how tabletop role-playing games are always just referred to as D&D, no matter what. Like,
Well, I mean, this one is technically, like, the game system that we're using is D&D.
Yeah.
We just, like, reskinned everything.
yeah.
Because there are other ones.
Well, there's like the Call of Cthulhu and like Pathfinder, but I feel like everyone just refers to it as D&D. Like,
Well, everyone not in the know would
yeah,
refer to
yeah,
it.
exactly. Well, I had another campaign that I was doing where it was like pirate themed, and it used a little bit of D&D, mechanics mostly, but
Right.
yeah, it was completely its own homebrew, and we just referred to it as D&D. No dungeons, no dragons. But
Right. It was pirates and... I'm trying to think of another P word that's related to pirates. Pirates and booty. I
yeah,
don't
you
know.
call it Pillage and Plunder.
Oh, there you
That's,
go.
that's a board game that I used to love growing up. So yeah, yeah, we've got a lot to catch up on, guys.
Yeah.
There's not going to be much of like a main topic today. It's pretty much just us saying, hey, we're still here. To our 12 listeners out there, we're still making podcasts, but the craziness of life has kind of put a hold on that for a bit.
Well, I think we talked about me getting promoted back in March.
Right.
And because I work for a company that makes the COVID tests, it's been crazy. And luckily the past couple weeks, like past week really, things have slowed down to the point where I can breathe.
Yeah.
And so that's been nice.
Well, I read yesterday, this is, again, not Star Wars related, that, is it Juab County down south has gone into the green.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Good.
there's one county in Utah that's now green. So
That's good. Well, there's no one that lives in that county.
There's no one that lives in that county.
So
Yeah,
it's good for those 5 people.
Antarctica's been in green the whole time. It's been great. Well, and actually, I had heard that New Zealand is completely coronavirus free, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really neat. The smaller countries can like really enact change, like sweeping change, because they have such a small territory and small population compared to larger countries, that they can do some really neat things.
Well,
that you can't really do on a large scale.
Maybe Chaz will be coronavirus free pretty soon. So,
or the Vatican.
Yeah, you've heard about Chaz, right?
No.
Oh, so Seattle.
Oh, Chaz.
Yeah.
No. Oh, I was thinking you were talking about Chad.
Oh, Chad, the country.
The country, yeah. Because it's a fairly small country. I was like, oh yeah,
maybe Chad. Yeah, over there. That might work. No, Chaz is the new self-proclaimed country in the heart of Seattle. So.
I think I'm moving there.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. My boss, who a little bit more on the conservative end, was kind of making fun of it the other day, and it was interesting because he was saying, like, you know, they're trying to establish an economy, and now they're asking for guns, and they're building a wall, and like doing all these things that they, you know, didn't like that conservatives wanted to do, but they're like having to do that for their thing. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know enough to say whether that's true or not.
Yeah.
I do know that Fox News had to apologize and take down when you went to their main Fox News page, their splash page, had some misleading images. Like they took the headline was about this Chaz thing happening in Seattle, but they had images of like burning buildings in Minneapolis on there, and then they actually had some straight up edited pictures that they like put in photoshopped guns and stuff into people's hands. So they had to apologize and take that down.
Interesting. Well, and I've noticed, again, this is a rant not to do with Star Wars, but they've been doing that on like a lot of news networks, not just Fox or CNN, or, you know, it doesn't really matter what political side you stand on. A lot of the media outlets have been doing this. I remember when Corona was, you know, the big news story, which almost no one is talking about anymore in the news.
Right.
They were showing images of Italy and saying how hospitals were being overrun and there was no beds and people, you know, couldn't get treatment for Corona, when it was images from Italy of hospitals and stuff. And it wasn't even, and they were saying it was all in New York. It's like, I mean, yeah, New York got hit pretty hard, and they are some of the only places where the hospitals got overrun. But it's like, that's just trying to create fears.
Right.
Seems very imperial, don't you think?
For clicks, it does.
Yeah. Seems like something, you know, fear will keep the systems in line, according to, you know, Tarkin.
Which is an interesting point. Like, where in Star Wars is there a news network? You don't really see like any.
There's the HoloNet, which is like their version of the internet.
Right, but there's no like. They never really. You never see it. Like you don't see anyone like browsing it or broadcast. I guess in Rebels there's like a broadcast, but it seems fairly local, just to the Lothal. Yeah,
I'm interested to see how the propaganda works in the Empire. Yeah. Like, they talk about the banking clans and the Fade Federation. That's the thing. Trade Federation. But yeah, they never talk about like media outlets and where they fall in as far as like during the times of the Republic and the Empire Rising. So.
There definitely is propaganda, because there's Empire Day that they kind of force onto everybody as well. So they are pushing that out there.
Well, and you see like broadcasts of Palpatine, and he's like a younger, like more approachable Palpatine.
They don't show the ugly guy.
Right. Which is interesting to me that they do that in the Empire, but at the very beginning of the Empire, he's like, look at my face. Look what the Jedi did to me. Like, I'm the face of the evil of the Jedi. You know, they left me scarred and disfigured. Now they're our public enemy. And then he kind of like hides it away, I guess, because, yeah, I mean, he's a politician still. Like, you have to have favor, and people look at you and you look like a fried chicken. They're gonna think you're not trustworthy.
When it's convenient to get sympathy, you show your scars. But then when you want to put this image of power out there, then you
you don't look strong when you look like you've been microwaved a little too long.
Yeah. So he needed sympathy at the beginning, but then he wants strength, and you can't show like, oh, someone was able to beat him up, so he's not too tough.
Yeah. I wonder, once they've moved from, you know, in episode 4, they kill the last remnants of the old Republic, right, by disbanding the Senate. Yep. And they say fear will keep the systems in line. You know, power's been given to the regional governors. Does he maybe stop the face of Palpatine and become the Emperor? Like, do you think, because they don't really talk much about it in the originals, right? They don't show the galaxy as a whole. I wonder if that point his plan was like, I'm now the Sith Lord, and they might see me as evil, but there's nothing they can do about it. You know what I mean?
Oh, you mean like not just as emperor, but as like a Sith emperor?
Right. Like before, he was like, kind of like, oh, I'm the supreme chancellor. I'm now the emperor, but I'm on your side. I'm bringing prosperity and justice to the galaxy.
Yeah.
Which I wonder now that he has the Death Star, or was planning on having the Death Star, if he was just like, nope, I'm Dictator Palpatine. I am a military. I have this huge military force. I am in charge. Whatever I say goes, because I have this weapon that can kill your whole planet if you piss me off.
Right. So he does go about consolidating power around himself, and it's a lot like disbanding the Senate is a lot like what Saddam Hussein did, where he says Have you ever seen that video of him basically declaring that there's a bunch of traitors in the audience because he's got like the whole Senate or whatever it was called, and then they just start naming names. And those people have to stand up, and they're taken out, and like most of them were killed.
Wow.
And he takes out anyone that dissents, and then if anyone's going to go against him now, they know they've seen what's going to happen to them as well.
Right.
So yeah, the fear keeps them in line. So it's very much like a Saddam Hussein type deal.
So I feel like he would want people to see his like ugly, creepy Sith lookingness, because now his tactic is fear and not manipulation.
Yeah, I don't think he ever comes out fully as just like, hey, I'm a Sith. Because the generals, when there's that scene in A New Hope when the generals and Vader are all talking, they still see Vader. I feel like Vader is the Sith to people. Like they know that he's like this hokey religious dude that has magic powers, but I don't think they relate that back to the Emperor.
And they never say Sith in the originals. Obviously, that was something that was created later, but they say like, you're the last thing of that ancient religion, and they kind of poke fun at it. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, you're okay, you're a Sith, sure, yeah, but you're, also just the bulldog on a leash for Tarkin and
yeah, I think that the Emperor stays behind and like he keeps himself a mystery. So
yeah,
Vader's the face of the hokey religion magic guy, Tarkin's the face of the military arm, but no one ever gets to see into the Emperor's.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's kept like a very small layer of.
And then later on, he has his Sith fleet and his Sith troopers, and it's just like, I'm a Sith.
Yeah.
And the First Order's like, okay, sure, we're gonna align ourselves with the Sith.
Yep.
Okay, I thought we were trying to bring back order, but nope, we're the bad guys. Okay, we're the bad guys. It seemed a little weird to me that the First Order still went along with it.
The First Order really leaned into Nazism.
They did.
Like the Empire didn't go full Nazi. Like they're called stormtroopers, which is like a Nazi thing.
Right.
But you never see like a full-on Nazi rally until you see the Starkiller Base rally with Hux up there with like basically Nazi flags behind him. Like, oh, okay, this is a little on the nose compared to how it usually is
on
portrayed.
which we stand.
Yeah. Just pounding his fist on the pulpit and like, oh my gosh.
999.
Like, yeah, this is really on the nose.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, and it kind of makes sense because like the First Order was a small little faction, like you read from the books, right? Yeah. Like Bloodline, they're like of these political idealists who were extreme, and they're like, oh, the Emperor was kind of a good idea. Where the Empire was like, I'm gonna take what's already established and kind of flip it around onto its head, and I had to convince a ton of people. Where this one was like, this small little faction that's growing bigger and bigger with more support, and we're getting a bunch of money somehow, and now we're gonna just take on the galaxy.
I can almost draw like real world lines there. Like during Bush's administration, we had kind of that like let's try and unite people around like this common enemy to get what I want. Which is in most cases oil or money or something. I'm gonna go. Oh, they have oil. I'm gonna go freedom the crap out of them.
Look like you guys could use some freedom.
But he couldn't just be like outright, just like we're gonna go take what we want. He had to pretend to have some sort of cause, and that's why it was such a big deal when there were no weapons of mass destruction. And Colin Powell had that whole speech, and he's later said that it was the biggest mistake in his life.
Yeah.
But they had to pretend. But like nowadays, half the time we're not even pretending anymore.
No.
And I think that's what's leading to a rebellion.
Yeah.
I saw Star Wars Twitter started using, I think it was Rebellion 2020 as a hashtag.
Interesting. Well, that's something I want to talk about. Obviously, part of the reason we've been delaying our podcast for the last couple of weeks is because of what's been going on in the news, mainly the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm just going to say this, and I apologize if this offends listeners, but Black Lives Matter.
I don't apologize.
Yeah. I shouldn't. No, I take that back. I don't apologize for saying that,
Right.
but I'm sorry for you if that makes you not want to listen to
Yeah.
our podcast, because Black Lives Matter, and that's the truth right there. So go ahead and say that. That's where we stand as a podcast.
I was thinking of an analogy as well.
Yeah.
So with everything going on, I kind of started relating it to Star Wars because that makes it more.
It's easier for me to grasp.
Yeah, I can like hold it in my head more.
Yeah.
And so the way that I look at it is when. So there's the Empire, which is like this high functioning machine, and a lot of people are profiting off of that system.
Right.
The Inner Rim, contractors, bounty hunters, like they like this system because it allows them to win, I guess you could say.
Sure.
It's working for them. And so they don't want that to change. And then there's a large group of people as well that this system is not working for, and they want to see that change.
Namely the Wookiees, or any Outer Rim people.
Yeah.
The Mimbanese, is that how you say it? I think it's Mimbanese, right?
I don't know who that is.
They're the indigenous to Mimban.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the emperor or the empire just kind of comes in and says,
Yeah.
my planet.
Well, that happens across so many systems, especially in the Outer Rim. You've got like crime lords, and they kind of have to like take care of themselves because there's no system of policing for them. Like the system doesn't work for them.
Right.
So they want to see a change. They want to rework it. And so when we have something big like the destruction of the first Death Star, you have these two narratives we see in the films, that the people that the system was not working for, they're excited. They're ready to burn this whole system to the ground because to them it's oppression. They're dying. They're being used, and other people are benefiting off of their labor. Then you can look at it from the other side of this was millions of people died on the Death Star, and
Right.
a lot of them were just following orders and just doing their jobs, and they had families back in their planets, and they didn't want to see the system change because it worked for them. So I was thinking, like, I had some conversations with some older family members, and they're like, why are they protesting? Let's just go back. Like, let's all calm down. Can't we just get along? And it's like, you're kind of missing the point. For you, the system works because you're
The boot's not on their neck,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
or the knee.
Yeah.
You're a 50-year-old white person who's benefited from the system for generations, whereas this other group of people don't benefit. So they're ready for change, and either you can try and maintain. You don't see yourself as privileged or in a position of power, but you're still a direct beneficiary.
Right.
So either you can try and maintain that status quo because it benefits you, or you can be willing to sacrifice a little bit so others, the most vulnerable people in our society, can be built up. And so that's why there's always two narratives with any sort of rebellion.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the galaxy sees the rebellion as terrorist cells,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what they were labeled as.
Well, yeah, now we're getting groups in the real world being labeled as terrorist cells, and
Exactly.
others that you feel like they should be aren't, and it's interesting.
Yeah, and so I kind of made this analogy. We talked about this a little bit as I tried to look at what was going on in the news, and I'm a 27-year-old white male, straight. Like I don't fall into any of the minority groups.
Right.
I am privileged beyond all doubt. With my life, I've had a very easy life. I mean, not like I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth or anything. I pay for my own college and everything. But
Yeah.
where was I going with this? I was just trying to figure out a way to kind of see what was going on and understand it. And of course, I use Star Wars to do so because I'm someone who's looking for education. Because I can't make a opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement when I am not black. I'm not a police officer either. Like how I can't stand on one side or the other without having all the information. But one way I was able to liken it to Star Wars was saying, okay, let's say the police officers in this situation are the stormtroopers, are the Empire. Well, a lot of them are bad. and a lot of them have done terrible things following orders. And those orders are coming from a place of ill intent. Some of them, like Finn, for example, it's like, okay, I don't like these orders. I'm not going to follow these orders. I'm going to do the right thing, and rebel.
Yeah.
So there's the truth is we look in Star Wars as all stormtroopers as bad guys, which is why the media and a lot of people are seeing all policemen as bad guys. Like, yeah, some of them do some terrible things. Others are just following orders.
Yeah.
But as a whole, they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
I look at people like, who are petitioning and peacefully protesting and donating their money to, Black Lives Matter funding, as people like Mon Mothma, who are getting their voices heard. Mon Mothma was not oppressed by the government.
No.
Mon Mothma would be your, white person who just wants to help, even though they're not feeling any of the hurt.
Right.
Mon Mothma had a good, easy life in the Senate.
Wasn't she from Alderaan?
No, she's from
She's from one of those like really privileged
Tranquilla or something like that.
Oh, really? That's even
Trandilla or something. Yeah, I can't remember. It's a really nice planet.
Yeah.
It's where the beginning of the New Republic is moved to. But so yeah, she's doing her best to push it out, but she's not physically getting in the fight.
Right.
Leia and the rebels and Jyn Erso and even later Han Solo, obviously, these are all people who are the ones in the streets protesting, even flipping over cop cars, physically fighting back to me, are the rebellion. And then you have your extremely violent protesters or your looters who are going to be like your Saw Gerreras, who maybe are taking things a little too far. And I'm not saying that rioting and looting and stuff is... I'm not saying it's necessary or not necessary. I'm seeing it as they really want their voices heard, and so they're going to extreme measures to get that done. Yeah. Whether you see that as right or wrong, that's up to the listener. And then you have your people who are just looting and destroying things because they can, and they don't care about the cause. And that's like your Hondo, who's like, I'm going to take advantage of this situation. There's a fight going on between the rebels and the Empire, and I'm going to try to profit from that however I can.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I will say though, like in Star Wars, we learned that sometimes to make big changes, you just gotta blow shit up. Sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And kind of hit them where it hurts. And in a society that values money and because everyone was willing to sacrifice their grandma to reopen the economy a couple months ago. So
well, not everybody, but a lot of people. Yeah.
A lot of people, yeah. Like I can't believe how many people were like, I'm willing to sacrifice myself to reopen this economy. So when in a society that values property and money over human life, sometimes you got to, hit them where it hurts, and that's going to be in the property and money. So, even like Target has come out and said like they still support Black Lives Matter, even though they've had stores burn. Yeah. So, sometimes it.
Well, and that was something that was interesting to me. Is I did see some news stories where people are deliberately destroying or stealing things from, in my opinion, people who don't have anything to do with this issue. Like, if you want to fight up against the police and the government, I'm all for that, because the police and the government have put these people in a place where they have to physically fight back now because they have been oppressed and there's been so much injustice done towards them through the last hundreds of years. But like going after a local business owner who maybe doesn't have a foot in this fight, and like, we've all seen the footage of even, black members of the community who have had their whole lives destroyed because of these riots. To me, that's a little sad.
Which is scary too, because once you can get out there with anonymity, you can put a mask on or carry an umbrella or whatever. People who want that to destroy the current movement and stop it are going to go out there as provocateurs. And so there's videos of like a white man smashing some windows to try and get people to jump inside and start looting. And like.
And then they can point it and go, see, these people are looting because it's
or there's videos of cops with bricks in the back of their truck, and they were like leaving them to just like leaving them out there. So it's really it just muddies, and even if those things aren't real, it's still just like that narrative starts muddying the water, and it starts diluting out the real stories.
Yeah, you don't know what's true or what's not. I mean,
that's all that you need too. You don't need to actively fight against it. You just need to muddy the water enough where people start doubting, and that's unfortunately what's been happening.
Well, and isn't that what the prequels are about? Is somebody saying like, "Ooh, I'm gonna push you against that person, and I'm gonna get you to get pissed off at each other, and then start a little fight, and then, oh, now we have a huge war. I'm gonna fund both sides.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's how you get things riled up.
As long as you can profit from either way it falls, then you're willing to start dividing people and pitting them against each other, because whatever the outcome, you're going to be on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough world we live in, guys.
Yeah. But...
Which is why escapism is good in a way. So I do want to do a little spinning. Part of the reason we haven't been recording lately is because there was kind of a movement going on where a lot of white content creators decided to silence themselves for a little while to give the black population a voice so that they could speak about the injustices going on in their lives. So we wanted to follow that a little bit, and I mean we've done that. We've given them some time, and I'm not saying that it's like, oh, this movement's over. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is now it's our turn to back them up and let them know that we stand with them. But escapism can be really important, but I was worried that maybe now is not the time to escape, because you can't just, turn off the real world and go live in Star Wars as much as I'd like to. I mean, you kind of did this week because you played Raider Immortal for the first time. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I think it's kind of a fine line we walk of, do we escape the real world and go live in the Star Wars universe? And that can be good sometimes when we need it. Or do we take Star Wars and the lessons learned there and like this conversation we're having and apply it to the real world and use that to better ourselves as human beings?
Well, and on that note, I think we talked about this a little bit, but representation in entertainment is important, because when we escape from the real world, we don't separate that escapism completely from our lives. And so if we only see things like Gone with the Wind have been taken off of HBO Max, and they're going to reintroduce it with some context and things like that.
Right.
But if you consume those things, you think like, oh, like the problem with Gone with the Wind is that I forget the name of the character, but she's like a happy slave. She's happy to serve her masters, which is not. If that's all you see, then you can start to form this idea of like that's how it was. Yeah. Because we don't completely separate nonfiction from fiction. We don't separate history from entertainment.
Well, I remember growing up and they always said, George Washington was really nice to his slaves. Like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I know we're trying to make him a hero in our history books, but nice to a slave is called not owning one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, so we can kind of talk about the Confederate statues and flags and things, because that's a topic right now. The statues and things are, a lot of people share this narrative that statues are how we show what's important to our society, and museums are where we go to learn about history. And so if you want to if you don't want to erase history, you shouldn't glorify the things you should be standing against. You should put those in context. Like we don't learn from history by putting Nazi statues up in our cities. But where was I going with this? You distracted me.
I had to plug in my laptop. It was running out of battery, so I didn't want to. Yeah, I should have done that before we recorded. Sorry, you were talking about glorifying history.
Yeah, I was talking about representation. And I forgot where I was going with the Confederate symbols.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that the other night after D&D.
But basically, like if every time you see in every movie, a black person is always portrayed as a criminal, or a white person is always portrayed as the hero, or even if they are a criminal, then they still have like justified reasons for doing what they do. Right. If it's always portrayed that way, then you start to get that bias. And start to think that way. So I think representation is important. And on that note, The Lovebirds, which is a really good film, stars Camille Nanjiani and Issa Rae, is very representative. It's a good movie.
I'll have to check that one out. I actually really want to see it. The other one, not that this helps with representation because it's mostly a white cast, but is King of Staten Island that just came out, and that's on my list there. I'll check that one out. But beyond the point there. Beyond the real, where we stay beyond the point. Did you have any other things you wanted to say as far as the movement for Black Lives Matter, or relating it to Star Wars? Or I know we're kind of talking in circles here. We don't have much of a structure today, but Preston and I just felt it was important to address some of these things, and maybe address some of these huge news stories that are coming out. Again, today's episode is a little bit more freeform than we've had in the past. Not that we've had a lot of structure in the past.
Yeah, we're usually just rambling. But I would say if anyone's out there and listening to this and thinking, these guys are just liberals that are like just repeating the propaganda, I would say just go listen to people. Because if you're a white person and you're thinking, what's the point of all this? That's kind of the point. It's not about you. Yeah. You don't have anything to fight against because the system's been for you. And you might think, but I've struggled. Yeah, but you struggled in the kind of a normal way of trying to make the best for your own life. Other people are struggling against a system. And just being a little bit more open-minded, I think, could help. Open-minded in the way that we keep our community safe, open-minded in experiences of others, just not shutting down conversation from the get-go. Yeah.
Well, and I want to say, if you are thinking we're just a couple of liberals here repeating what's been said on Twitter, if you met me, you probably wouldn't think I was a liberal. Nope. And I'm not even claiming to be a liberal. I
wouldn't call you a liberal at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't call me a liberal. I wouldn't call me a Republican either, or a Democrat. But I'm a hunter. Like, sorry if that offends you, but I kill deer and I eat them because it's a fun hobby, and I have a lot of respect for the animal that I kill and I eat them. I never let parts of them go to waste. I mean, I'm not Native American. I don't keep their intestines and use them to make bowstrings, but I like to use them. I'm someone who believes, in small government control.
I would put you closer to libertarian than anything else.
Yes, and I'm not quite as extreme as libertarian as people can be about it. I'm not quite the Ron Swanson, but I believe in legal marijuana, legal gay marriage. People should be able to own guns, and the government should have very little say in what goes on in our lives. So, and
every time I think I know,
we could pay less taxes. That'd be great too.
Every time I think I know where you're gonna stand on an issue that I'm bringing up to you, you always surprise me, because I'm like, he probably thinks this way, right? And then you're like, no, I think that way. Yeah. I think your stance is usually just let people do whatever they want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah, typically is. That's why I don't put myself into boxes, because I try to do what I think is right, which is not always what is right, because that's, who knows what is right or wrong. But on a situation like Black Lives Matter, it's like, obviously being racist is wrong, guys. Yeah. Like,
so this is I guess this will be my last thought. There's some people that want to be that enlightened center. They just want to be like, let's look at both sides, let's hear both sides. But in situations like this, it's hard. You can't, because one side is Black Lives Matter, the other side is hate. Right. And you might think I don't hate black people, but I just don't like the term Black Lives Matter. Well, it's like if someone comes to you and says, my father's died, and you say, well, everyone's father dies. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. When you say all lives matter, that's true, but it's hurtful because that person is going through something difficult right now. Right. And there's no two ways about it, and I think we just need to be supportive.
Well, and I've heard a lot of white people say, Black Lives Matter, but what about, Hispanics, and what about Asians, and what about, there's so many other races out there. It's like, yeah, but I haven't heard any Hispanics or Asians going, well, whoa, we want representation too. It's like, yes, there has been issues of racism towards every race, even the white race, as much as it pains me to say it. There has been racial issues towards a lot of people in a lot of different countries. But right now, the issue is black people are dying because of system of race, or systematic racism.
And I've even heard people use this, because the statistic is real, that more white people are killed by cops than black people every year. But there's a reason we're called the majority and minority, right? Because, but if you account for the actual makeup of the population, it's like I don't know the statistic for for actually being killed by police. But as far as being put through kind of the system, the judicial system, 1 in 3 black men will go through that system at some point in their lives, and 1 in 11 white men.
Yeah.
So I never have to worry.
The percentage is what's the difference. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I actually had a warrant out for my arrest at one point in my life.
Really?
But it's not something I even worry about. It's not something that's followed me through my life. It was because I forgot. I was at work and I forgot to go to my court appearing for a traffic ticket, and so they put a warrant out.
I was
for my
like,
arrest.
wait, do we have a criminal on the show? Still tell us about your sketchy past here.
It was just a speeding. Yeah, it was just this. It was like because I was 16 or I was 17, and so like my limit on how many speeding tickets you can have is lower. So I got like 2 speeding tickets in a year. So I had to go to court, and I forgot, and so they put a warrant out for my arrest. But like that doesn't follow me. But
here's another thing I want to relate racism to Star Wars real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously the real world, but it takes place within Star Wars. Is Poe Dameron, okay, Han Solo, both we know were spice runners.
Yes.
Drug dealers is what that is,
Yeah.
right? And it's still charming. They're fun.
Yeah.
But could you imagine how the public would react if Finn was the spice runner or Lando was the spice runner? I feel like we would see them in a different light.
I just realized Han Solo was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a drug deaaler. He was like a full-on
drug smuggler, more so than
like
dealer, but yeah.
Yeah, he was like the guy that brings the Colombian cocaine across the bay.
Border. Yeah.
And then Lando was a white-collar criminal.
Right.
Because he was like the business
gambler, or he won Cloud City in a game of Sabacc or something.
Yeah, and he was laundering money.
Yeah.
It was more like white-collar crimes, and then there's Han Solo. He's the one that's like smuggling drugs. That's interesting.
But we see Poe and Han as these kind of charming, swashbuckling heroes, and it's interesting because I feel like it would have, especially in the 70s, if you would have seen the black person as the criminal, people would have not liked the character, and that's a sad thing to say, that we're quicker to forgive a white person for their crimes than we are for a black person, and that's sad.
There's actually psychological studies. I was just listening to a podcast called Hidden Brain. So once you're done with this podcast, you can go listen to Hidden Brain. It's amazing. But there's one about implicit bias, and they do something like, maybe I shouldn't explain it all, but basically, we're more inclined to forgive white people, and because judges are able to use their own judgment to determine bail, fines, and time, it's skewed because of that
bail
bias.
set higher, the time
is longer.
served is longer. It's a sad thing.
You're less likely to get parole for good behavior.
There was something else I wanted to go with that, but we'll go ahead and stop the the Black Lives Matter movement talk there. We just want to quickly say our hearts go out to anybody out there that's suffering from this, whether you're a black individual who has personally felt this oppression and this injustice, or you're a victim even of the riots if you're a business owner or something. There are victims all around, obviously, but the truth is there needs to be a change in this country, and people aren't being quiet about it anymore. So.
And I think the biggest weapon that we have is not a couple TIE fighter bullets. We don't have that magic bullet that can go right down the exhaust port to fix this problem. Yeah. But
X-Wing, you mean?
X-Wing. What did I say? TIE fighter. Yeah, actually, it was Vader that shot the...
Was it?
No.
Oh. I was like, wait, what? I just watched that movie. Did I miss something?
I would love to see that revisionist, that retcon of Luke closes his eyes and fires a shot, but it's actually Vader shooting at him from behind. It just misses the X-Wing and goes down the port.
Oh, man.
Because Vader was right behind him, right?
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Vader saw his opportunity. He was pissed at Tarkin.
Yeah.
He saw his opportunity.
That's it.
Here's how I can kill Tarkin. And, maybe a couple other 100,000 people. Who cares? But I can kill Tarkin right now and blame it on the rebels.
That's true. No, I was saying our biggest weapon is education. So both educate yourself because if you don't think that there's a problem, that one means that you probably benefit from the system. And two, you don't know enough about what's been happening. And so educate yourself before you form your opinions just based off of what others have said, whether it's us or mainstream media.
Sure. And I would say to any person of color out there, keep talking, keep trying to educate. And what I would say to white people out there is listen, because a lot of white people are making it about them, but this isn't about you guys. It's not. It's about the oppressed, and so let's listen to them. Sounds super hypocritical as two white guys that are talking about oppression and getting our voices out.
But we're not making it about ourselves.
But I hope we don't sound like we are. And if we do have listeners out there who feel like they want to educate us more, please reach out to us. Tweet us at beyondthereelpod. SW Beyond the Real.
No, it's BTR Star Wars.
It is BTR Star Wars. We've switched it a couple times. I'm sorry. BTR Star Wars. Tweet us at BTR Star Wars on Facebook or Twitter. Email us at beyondthereelpod@gmail.com, because we do want to hear your stories. If you're a black listener who's seen these things in your real life, let us know. We want to listen. If you have more information to give us. If you're a white listener who thinks that we're destroying the country by saying Black Lives Matter, then you can tell us that, but we probably won't listen to you very much.
If someone wants to talk, I've actually whenever I see I just said whenever again, if I see a person on Twitter that's like saying negative things, but there seems like there's potential, I will sometimes DM them and say like, hey, instead of kind of shouting this into like a comment section, let's talk, let's DM. No one's taken me up on it yet. I've done it several times now. So that is kind of telling to me. But yeah, if there's potential for someone to listen and have a conversation, I'm willing to listen to their side. Yeah. And as long as they're willing to listen to mine.
And if you're disagreeing with what we're saying, I'm not saying I won't listen to you. I will listen to you. If you have information that you think is meaningful that you want to share with us, we'll read it, we'll listen, and we'll respond. But if you're just going to yell at us and call us libtards, which is a great term, wow, that was sarcasm, by the way, if you couldn't hear that in my voice, then we probably won't respond back to that very, very quickly or very tactfully.
You might get blocked.
Anyways, so after that rant, let's finish just kind of wrapping up our week a little bit. I bought or have a addition to my family that we just had.
Congratulations.
My wife and I have had a baby, bearded dragon. Not a real baby, or a human baby, I should say. It's a real baby, bearded dragon.
How old is it?
I'm thinking it's like a week and a half old.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little guy. So his name's Stanley Yelnats. I wanted to name him a Star Wars name. I wanted to go with like Crate or something. We kind of talked about that earlier. But she liked the name Stanley Yelnats for holes. But we are building a terrarium for it that is going to look like Tatooine. So we built a little hut that looks like a Tatooine, kind of like those igloo domes, and building a sandcrawler, a little hutch that he can go hang out in a sandcrawler in. So I'm excited about that. And then Preston has some big news about your. You have. Can't talk right now. Go ahead and tell them if you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's really easy to join, but so it's not like a big hard thing that I've done. But I've joined the 501st as a cadet. It's really easy. You just sign up, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But I'm currently working on my costume, which is a Garnandan costume. I've got my sister sewing my cloak. I've got my boots in the mail. I've already received my gloves and belt and shirt and everything. So the last thing that I need to work on is my mask, which is more complicated than I thought. I thought I'd make it out of like straight up leather, kind of like they did in the original, like the real one. But it's
quickly
hard.
Just tell the listeners, because we have listeners from all walks. Some that know Star Wars really well in depth, and some that are just kind of just getting into it. So explain who Garnandan is.
You don't know Garnandan? Come on, the star.
Fake fan.
The star of A New Hope. With all like 5 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
He's the long-snouted guy that points the. He sees Luke and Obi-Wan with the droids headed into Hangar Bay 94.
Docking Bay 94.
Docking Bay 94. And he points that out to the stormtrooper. So he's the little trunk guy that sounds funny. And
I can't do it.
yeah. So that's him. He is a Kubaz from Kubindi, and he's actually I just learned this. He's in the book from a different point of view, and it kind of gives a little bit of his backstory, and that he's trying to earn passage back to Kubindi to like save his daughter. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So the original story
everyone in
behind
those legend books are just doing something noble. And,
yeah. I was gonna say, because the original story, like in Legends, was that he was like the most vile spy for the Empire. He had no scruples. He was scrupulous, and
just a scrupulous Kubaz named Garndan.
yeah. And there's even like the legend said that he was like he smelled bad and things like that. But then the new canon came out with that book from a different point of view and made him like a noble father, just trying to like get back to his daughter.
Nice. Yeah.
So I like I like the revisionist version of that more.
Well, I do too, because the Empire is a racist organization. Yeah. We've known that. They're xenophobic. Yeah. So
or like biased towards humans.
Yeah, they're biased towards humans. They don't typically hire. Thrawn was like one of the very few alien species, and he's pretty human-like.
He's basically human, just
right?
Different colored.
Yeah. So. So to me, it doesn't make sense for him to be an actual like ISB agent or Imperial spy, but to be a contracted person. So.
Yeah, he's just doing whatever he can, and every time he gives out a tip, he gets paid. So
yeah. Well, we missed the 40th anniversary of Empire. We didn't.
I didn't.
Well, you didn't miss it. Yes, you watched it. We missed recording during that week. So, but you watched it for your for the anniversary. Did you have any new insights you wanted to share with the listeners?
Honestly, I was a little distracted while I was watching it.
Yeah.
So
it's hard with a movie you've seen 1,000 times to like actually pay attention the whole time.
Yeah. It was good.
That's good. It's always good. It's always good. That's the next on a watch. I have a friend of mine's daughter who's 11 years old. She has only seen one Star Wars. And so I was like, hey, you're prime age to be educated in the Star Wars. So we watched New Hope a couple nights ago. The next one is Empire, so I'm excited to show that to her and see what she thinks. So she knows the big spoiler about Vader being Luke's dad. So.
What?
Yeah. Oh, did you not? Oh boy, man, that's a big one. And then the last thing, just in our this is a very long catch up and recap of our week, but Preston, you played some Vader Immortal the other night while you came over.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, or like what stood out to you the most?
So I was having a conversation just yesterday with Joey, who's a part of our D&D group, because he was sharing some of the stuff that we've done in our campaign with his friend, and he told him about like how your character Bruin was flying and had like a force amulet that gave you like some force powers, even though you're not force sensitive, you're just a Mando. He was talking about that, and his friend came back with, well, that's not how the Sith works.
It's D&D, guys. It's not farthest from canon there is.
Yeah, it's like, it's only a few Sith can fly. That doesn't make any sense that he got the temporary power to fly through some, dark Sith magic in the temple that we were exploring. But what I realized playing Vader Immortal, to bring it back to that, is Vader Immortal, like, there's a magic seed that gives life to Mustafar, and like, there's a lot more magic.
There's a lot of fantasy in there.
Fantasy in here, which is like, if you want to put hard, fast rules to Star Wars, you're like, that's the wrong way to look at it.
Sure, absolutely.
You should. It's very loose. Very. You can have like that almost like Mad Max kind of feel of broken down mechanical stuff, or you can go into that high fantasy of like a magic seed that brings life to your planet. That's all within the realm of Star Wars. We got the Dathomir witches. It's a whole new take on the Force. So anytime that someone comes back at me with like, that's not how the Force works. What do you know about the Force?
Exactly. If Dave Filoni told me that, or George Lucas, I'd be like, okay, that's not how the Force works. But which is true. Like,
or if Han Solo said it to me.
Yeah, what we've done in D&D, if that would have shown up in a movie, yes, I would have been like, okay, we're stretching it a little bit, but
I don't know. I think I could have like
I could see it.
Like you broke a magic mirror that like showed you Force visions,
yeah,
and then like this ooze came out and like corrupted you for a little while. That gave you like some dark Sith abilities. I think that's totally within the realm of Star Wars.
And I think it's within the realm, and I would see it in canon, but I feel like some fans would watch that and be like, ooh, that's hard to... Because, I mean, Star Wars has always gotten more, like, for example, Episode 4, the first one to come out.
Yeah.
All you see is Force ability is he can dodge the training remote with his eyes closed. He can guide the missile, and he can talk to Ben beyond the grave.
I've never thought
and
about
the Force
this.
choke. Force choke is like the most powerful
That's
thing
true.
you see in the original Star Wars. Like I was watching it the other night and was thinking like, man, we have always referred to them as these space wizards and like all this, hyper powerful like people. But in the first episode, so from 93 to 80, really all they got was just a couple of little simple tricks and nonsense, which is what Han Solo says.
Vader doesn't even pick anyone up with the Force. Like
he picks someone up
he picks them
physically, yeah.
But you don't even see any like levitation or anything until I think Empire. He Force chokes. He picks someone up in Empire.
I can't remember. But yeah, you do see a lot more Force ability. Like that's the first time you see the Force reach when he reaches for the lightsaber.
That's right. Yeah.
Because
that's right. Yeah.
The guy's making fun of him in the conference room, and he's like, "Yo, your devotion to that sand religion hasn't conjured up the stolen data tapes." And then he's just like, "Choke you," and it's like kind of a dumb little magic trick in comparison to what we've seen. And it's like, I've seen you stand there, I've seen you pull a lightsaber out, and I've seen you choke someone. That's the extent of this crazy powerful Sith Lord. And in the 70s, everyone's like, "Oh, it was so cool." But now we look back at it and it's like, yeah, you didn't really do anything. Like what we know you can do versus what you did in that movie to prove your power to that guy making fun of you was pretty funny.
Which it actually makes sense in world. It makes sense because it's like that's like the Dark Ages. Like they're coming out of the Dark Ages at that point, or at the height of the Dark Ages. Yeah. So the Force powers are like kind of suppressed and limited at that point.
Well, and then you go to episode 9 and you see, just lightning bolts galore coming out of every which way. And every movie we've made the Force more and more powerful. Mm-hmm. And with every video game we've made it even more powerful too. So.
With Starkiller pulling the what are those called?
The Star Destroyers?
Star Destroyers.
The triangle ships?
I think I said Starkiller, and I couldn't remember Star Destroyer because it was too similar.
When Sam Witwer pulled a Dorito out of the sky, man, that was the greatest moment of Star Wars.
It becomes... Well, there's different sides of it. Like, you see the power of it, but then there's also the mysticism with like, the Dathomir witches, with Mortis and Son. Those sort of things add a mysticism. Or the wills, when you see like those like masked wills that Yoda goes to, that's like full on fantasy right there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of fantasy in the TV shows too that we see. So
with time travel, Loth
Wolves. Worlds, Loth Wolves, man, that's something in our campaign. We're looking for some Loth Wolves.
And all you found was some, what are they called? Taka. I forgot what they're called.
I forget too.
Those Sith
dog things. Yeah. Those are ugly.
You guys didn't. I was hoping that you would fall for it and think that they were Loth Wolves.
Oh, I thought it was for a good long while.
No one said anything. I was trying to trick you, but
no, I thought it totally was a Loth Wolf. Well, we've been recording for quite a while. Preston and I are gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk to the news a little bit. Kind of let you guys break this up. We might break this up into 2 episodes.
Yeah, I was
we don't know. We've been going for a hot minute here.
Maybe we can edit out some of our other stuff.
Maybe, but I'll probably leave it all in there, to be honest with you. I don't know. I'm weird. Like, when I listen to podcasts, I prefer when they make mistakes and they don't edit it out, because I can, I don't know, it seems more raw, it seems more real, and I want to hear their opinions unfiltered. Yeah. So, I don't know. We had a lot of opinions today, so maybe I should filter them out. Probably won't.
I've got a job, I don't want to get canceled.
Yeah.
I don't want to get fired from my job because the Twitter canceled me.
Yeah.
I don't think I've said anything radical.
I don't think we've said anything too radical in here. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back momentarily. Okay, and we are back from our break. Preston and I were discussing a little bit off air here about the direction of the show, and there is quite a bit of news that we haven't covered in the last several weeks of ours taking a break from the show. So I think what we're going to do is, instead of covering the news this week, we're going to go back to our normal platform of show from week to week here on out, discussing the news week by week. But what we're going to do today is we're just going to kind of finish out by talking about a couple of stories that kind of pertains to what we were talking about today, which is more of the social injustices going on in the world. So I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Sorry, at the top of the episode, I did mention we will talk about the news, but we're going to push that. So hopefully you're staying tuned. We're going to talk about John Boyega, who has made quite an impact both in the Star Wars community and in normal community, if you will. Normal people. as well as Ahmed Best and his new show with the Jedi Temple challenges. So let's start with John Boyega. I'd just like to say how awesome it is to see him, not only being a force for change in the movies, but outside the movies as well. It's kind of fun and refreshing to see this person who I saw as a hero in the films, now as well being a hero in real life. Mm-hmm. You have any thoughts on John Boyega there?
Yeah, he started ruffling a lot of people's feathers. He said some things that were seen as controversial, but really the whole point behind his message is racism is bad. And so I was really excited.
Which is kind of the point of Star Wars. Not necessarily racism, but oppression is bad.
Yeah. And let's fight against it. And so do you mind if I just read what Lucasfilm says?
Absolutely.
So I was really excited to see that Lucasfilm released just like a few sentences of support. And they say, Lucasfilm stands with John Boyega and his message that now is the time. Black lives have always mattered. Black lives have always been important. Black lives have always meant something. The evil that is racism must stop. We will commit to being a part of the change that is long overdue in the world. John Boyega, you are our hero.
I agree with that fully. Yeah, what was you mentioned there were some controversial things that he was saying. Do you know what those were that people had issues with, or?
Yeah, it's because he said white racists.
Oh.
He said fuck white racists, and so people are like, well, white people can experience racism too.
Yeah, but again, that's not what the issue is right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's what ruffled some people's feathers, and it's like. And the
people making
problem
things about
with that,
themselves.
Yeah, the problem with that is, one, it makes it about yourself, and two, that's like you're just saying that to be argumentative.
Right.
If I were to say, oh, but white people face oppression and racism as well, you can be racist against a white person. Well, okay, maybe it's true that's a true statement. You can be racist against a white person.
Right.
I personally have never had it doesn't affect me.
No, I've never been a target of racism in my life.
So it's that the statement is true that you could, but it's not most people's experiences, and so that's why it's like it's the only reason you'd be saying that argument is not for your own benefit, but just to put down another person's message, and that's what's really bad about it.
Well, I lived a couple of years in a place called Fairfield, California, which was I don't like using the term ghetto, but I guess that's one way you could describe it. It's a little bit more lower income area.
I was trying to think of the term, but like low income.
Yeah, it's kind of a low income area. Going to school there, I would say the majority of the students there were black, and I had felt stereotypes being asserted against me, I guess, if you will, but I've never felt racism. Mm-hmm. I've never felt like I was targeted for being white and I was being, vilified by any of the black students there. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, they would assume things about me because I was white, and half of those things were true. And so, yeah,
but you didn't lose, you didn't miss out on playing on the football team because of it. Or, you didn't lose anything because of it.
No, I would say that wasn't the case at all. Yeah. It was actually one of those schools where because it was kind of a rougher school. I was really young, so I didn't face much of it. It was more my older siblings where, you smile at the teacher, you get a B, basically, because they were such rough area that they just wanted somebody to be nice to them. But I never felt like I was targeted for my skin color. So to me, I don't think it's all that wrong to assume the racist people are white.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, maybe saying that they're like being against white racists kind of opens it up to like, okay, well then since you're being specific, that means that there's black racists or racists of other ethnicities, but it's because the system's been geared towards benefiting white people for so long. They're the ones in the power that are actively oppressing others. And so, like, even if a person of color was racist, and it could be because of their experiences or prejudices, because no, racism isn't learned, so it comes from somewhere. Right. But they're often not in a position of power to systemically oppress anyone else. But white people are. So that's why he was being specific. But yeah, it's really neat that Lucasfilm stood behind him, because oftentimes it's easy as a corporation to at most just remain silent. Yeah. Or actively come out against someone like that, but it's cool that they. And I'm
glad they did, because Star Wars is about fighting against oppression and injustice, and so if
and it's about like being your true self. Yeah, a lot of times, like living up to your potential.
Like one of my fears before we had this discussion, before we started this podcast, is I didn't want to alienate any listeners. Now we don't have a ton of listeners. If I had 100,000 listeners, it's like, I'd be worried about losing a percentage of them. Here, it's like there's not many to lose anyways.
Maybe one of the 12.
Right, one of the 12. But then I started thinking, like, in my opinion, our message isn't all that, like, no, crazy, all that radical. But people who would take issue with us saying racism's bad, because that's just a statement, that shouldn't even be an opinion, or if they are racist, if I don't want members of the KKK or neo-Nazis listening to Star Wars, and I don't understand, or listening to our podcast, I don't understand how they would be a fan of Star Wars. Like, I was thinking about it the other day, like, well, if you were a racist, like a true racist, how would you watch Star Wars? Would you root for the Empire? Like, how does that even work out? Like, does your version of Star Wars end at Empire Strikes Back, when the Empire is kind of winning at the end? Like,
you don't like Vader because he's voiced by James Earl Jones?
Oh yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, that would be tough to.
You like the values of the Empire, but you can't stand for Vader.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know how you would watch, because I remember when John Boyega was actually announced as the lead, there was a lot of racism going around.
Came out.
People saying, like, "Oh, now we got to put a black guy in every movie." It's like, what?
What
there were 2 others. There's a black guy per trilogy. Like, that's is an injustice.
That's
the
injustice. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, wow. Or even when it comes to, like, females are like, "Oh, now every main character has to be a woman." Yeah. It's like, there is half of our population is woman, half our population is male. Like, you get one or the other. What do you? I mean, that's an argument for yourself. I mean, people think there's other genders. Yeah. Oh, there's like slightly more women.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like,
because men die sooner, and so there's less of us.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Just as like a whole population.
Yeah, but it's like, guys, come on.
Yeah.
You've had your whole lives to see the white male be, the hero. Like,
well, that's why I keep coming back to the Lovebirds, is because, like, it without really forcing it, it put like an Indian guy and a black woman as the main characters, and it is the funniest movie I've seen in a while. Yeah. But it was just normal. Right. Like, they didn't make a thing about it. So it's cool to see that, because, like I said, representation in entertainment is important, because when you start seeing heroes that look different than you start to subconsciously make those associations of anyone can be a hero.
Well, I can't tell you how many people or stories I've heard of black young black boys who have loved Spider-Man because of Miles Morales. Yeah. They saw themselves in a comic book, and they're like, now I can dream that somebody looks just like me, has got powers, and is fighting crime and whatever. And that's why I'm so happy that this week they released the Jedi Temple Challenges, because we get to see Ahmed Best, who is not only just a black man who didn't get much credit in Star Wars, but one that was actively hated upon. Not necessarily for his race. I'm sure there was some racist remarks made, but it was more hatred of the character rather than than the actor himself, but he got a lot of hate.
And he went through some stuff.
And he went through a lot of stuff. He almost committed suicide, from what he has told us. Not us personally, but the Star Wars community. Yeah, he was here a couple of days ago. It's great. No, but yeah, I'm just love to see this turnaround where now he's the face of the show, and
not only that, but he's not Ahmed Best, the host of the Temple Challenge.
Right.
He's a Jedi. Like he has a character name, which is amazing. I love it. So he's not just Jar Jar now. He's got a new character.
He's a Jedi Master. Yeah, and he does great. I love it. I watched the first episode. I didn't keep watching it because it's designed for kids, and
I'm gonna watch it with my 6-year-old. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll love it, and I'm sure he'll love it. It's me just being a kind of middle-aged adult. I'm not gonna watch every episode.
Middle-aged. 27.
I know I'm not quite middle-aged. I feel like I'm middle-aged, man. I don't know. I'm gonna only live till 60, so that's middle-aged for me. But
it's great. I've already got like ideas. Like once we watch it, and if my son likes it enough, I'm gonna like set up some courses for him.
Yeah.
In our backyard.
It opens the imagination up for a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's
and it's we were talking about when I grew up in 93 to 95, Legends of the Lost Temple. This is I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't seen the Jedi one, but it looks really similar to that. Those kind of kid challenge adventures. So I love that as a kid. So I'm excited to share that.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say about it.
It's great.
Mind fart. Yes, it is great. Well, let's just leave on that then. Kind of a weird episode again today. Not a lot of structure, but Preston and I just felt that we had to get some stuff out there. We're happy that Star Wars is, in my opinion, taking the side that it should, standing against injustice. So, that's pretty much going to be it for us this week. Sorry if you didn't like this episode as much, but we spoke some hard truths that some people need to hear, and I'm sure a lot of you agree with us as well. So next week we'll kind of go back to our normal status, talking the news, talking the main topic, maybe get some guests on. The house that I just moved into, I moved upstairs from a friend of mine who is a really neat artist who's drawn some pretty cool Star Wars stuff. So I kind of want to have him come up and talk a little bit about art in the Star Wars community, so that could be fun, as well as bring Lewis back. If you guys enjoy the Lewis episode, he's got a lot more to talk about of his journey on rewatching Star Wars.
I enjoyed the Lewis episode because it made me feel like I was super smart, because he was like impressed by everything that I said. I'm like, oh, cool.
Oh, good. All this time and effort put into Star Wars isn't for nothing.
Someone's impressed by this.
So thanks for listening, guys. May the Force be with you, and
be kind to each other.
Be kind to each other. Exactly. And hopefully you'll tune in next week as well.